Okay, thank you for the nice introduction, and welcome to all the participants. And let me also thank you for your patience, because there was some technical hitch up in the beginning, but I think we can manage to resolve it. So the session is actually titled as Cyber Risk and Why We Need to Think Like Criminals. So basically what I'm going to cover is what are the major risks and challenges that the corporates are facing, why it should be of concern to even the business, even for the economic development of the country. How are we prepared to face this kind of risk? And what is the right method? Are we doing the right method? And what is also the role of senior management? So I won't say it's the role of senior management. It can be the role of each and every one of us who is in the organization. So most of the times, people ask me, where is the risk coming from when I start talking to seniors? Or when I flip this question around and ask them where is the risk coming from, I get a lot of interesting answers. Mostly people used to tell me that, it is theft. So previously it was material theft and today it is information theft. So when we are talking about the information theft, the natural progression is the term called hackers. Then they say, okay, the hackers can be my competitors. It can be competitive intelligence people. It can be customers who is trying to hack into my system. It can be my outsourced partners. It can be media, it can be regulators. And today we talk about it is going to be a set of people who is using the term cyber. Now, all of these answers is in a sense correct. But what we need to understand is, are we really calibrating these competition or these people who are trying to disrupt the business in the right sense and in the right magnitude? Now, even if we are able to sense it from the magnitude and the way they are going to behave, what we need to understand is, point number one, cyber is a term which has been created by the media and blown it out of the proportions. So cyber is not a new animal which has come onto the earth. It is always there. But now it is becoming much more prominent because of two specific reasons. And that is what we need to really understand. Is the cyber an animal or is it a manifestation of our own issues? And we are now calling it as cyber. That's point number one. The second point which we need to figure out is the cyber becoming so big because of the basic lack of understanding in us on the reality that exists around us? So I'm basically trying to answer these two questions, and I'm not saying that what I'm going to say is the gospel truth. It is just a thought process, and you can basically figure out your own conclusions out of that. So what we need to understand is the real risk is what we are aware of. And if we are aware of the real risk, do we even know the impact of that risk? So let me start with, so whenever we talk about the risk in a business, this is, the previous slide is what we keep hearing, hackers, competition, all these kind of things. But as a corporate, are we really fearing that as a risk, or we are seeing something else which we are ignoring from a risk perspective? So in my understanding, the risk which is faced by any organization today is, point number one is global terrorism. Second is the internal issues within the country. Third is the competition which has become much more global. And the last one, if not the least, is the recession and the lifestyle issues. Now, whenever I start talking about this, a lot of time people say, boss, whatever you are telling me right now is not in the realm of the corporate to figure out. I mean, what am I going to do as a corporate if the global terrorism is a risk? Or if the internal national situation is a risk? There's nothing which a corporate can do. Now, that is where the challenge begins, and that is why we are, in most of the cases, we are actually a sitting duck when an attack happens. So let me just take the global competition, the global terrorism now. I'm sure most of you are aware of this map. This is India surrounded by the so-called friendly countries. In a sense, India is very lucky because India is the only country which is surrounded so well in all the sides by people who are either against us or probably in some cases a failed state. Now, you may wonder that why am I putting up this slide and trying to link it to a corporate? So let me say, let's take an example of, let's say Kashmir, for instance. Now, it is a well-known fact that, the terrorism has increased. Now, the Indian defense is trying their level best to crush whatever is going on there. And eventually they will succeed. I mean, the way we have succeeded in Punjab, we will succeed even in Kashmir. It's only a matter of time. Now, what we need to figure out is when we say we will succeed, what does it mean? Are we going to kill the terrorism, or we are going to do something else by which we declare that there is no terrorism left in that state? So the point is, when the state agencies try to crush any kind of a movement, whether it's across the border or within the country, it is very unlikely that those set of people who are willing to lay down their life for a cause which they believe in, they get brainwashed and their cause becomes something else. It is very obvious that when the concentration of the forces are on the border side, the easiest way for these people to escape is to come to the center of the country or get into some metropolitan cities. So obviously cities like Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, Bangalore all becomes one of the easy haven for these people to come and park themselves. Now what happens is when these kind of people come into the cities, there are few jobs. Obviously they need money, they need jobs, they are in a new space. There are few jobs which is willing to be offered to them, or there are some jobs which is actually waiting for them. Now that is where the risk or the issue actually begins, because we always say the enemy is at the gate, but when I explain this slide, you will understand that the enemy is not at the gate, he is actually inside your house. The first job that these people are able to get is the so-called security agencies or the security guard. Because today in this country, if you have a person and if he can be given a uniform, then he becomes a security guard. The guy who is supposed to be guarding your assets, whether it's personal assets or the organizational assets, you don't even know his background. Because you have signed an agreement with an agency and you believe that the agency knows what is it doing. Agency is facing severe manpower shortage, and they don't mind picking up any guy, whether he is able to walk, whether he is able to run, it doesn't really make any difference. They will be given a uniform and he will be placed in front of your premises. And he is the one who is now going to protect everything that is with you. That's point number one. So the guy has already crossed the perimeter. The second job, which is probably waiting for these guys, are the drivers. So if you employ a driver, how many of you even figure out where is he coming from? What is his background? In most of the cases, he comes through a reference and we just take him on board. Now, he is privy to all the conversation. He is privy to the complete family situation, who is traveling where, the complete travel plan is available with them. And then we say, okay, fine, he's a trusted guy because he's been referred by somebody else. And the third one is the most interesting one, which is the BPO. Because with 33% attrition month on month, they need people, and anybody who can speak English or maybe have the basic 10th pass or a 12th pass gets employed in BPO. And all of you are aware of the kind of data the BPO handles. Now, when you start looking at these kind of situations, you suddenly realize that what we thought as a person who is sitting outside and trying to get better of us is probably sitting next to you on your table. You don't even know. Because our belief is that the terrorism or the people who are actually in that side is of particular caliber, particular nature, they dress up in a particular fashion. Today they are management grads, they know inside out of the IT systems. I mean, there are various examples of voice over IP has been used for terrorist activities. Now, if these kind of people are able to get into the organization, just pause a moment and figure out, do you even know what kind of controls you have to detect these people? Now, why this becomes all the more critical, because I already told about the infiltration of people into the cities and the kind of jobs they are able to pick it up and how they enter into the corporates. And we have heard several news agencies that well-educated people are now part of some kind of a homegrown module or some kind of international modules. and we have no wherewithal to figure out what they are doing sitting inside the office premises. Right? Second is obviously the easy availability of weapon and explosives. So I'm not talking about the guns and bombs here. I'm talking about the availability of weapons and explosives that can be used in the cyberspace. Today we all know that if I want to penetrate into an organization, I don't need an extremely high-end kind of an IT skill. Most of the tools and techniques are available on the net, and I can use that and get inside. Now, forget even that, I will cover this in a separate slide towards the end. The skill set of the people. So today when we are talking about hacking, most of the names that comes to our mind is the Russian corridor. That is where the hacking originates. Now, the point is, today if you are an organization and you are trying to protect yourself, let's consider even a very matured organization in terms of cybersecurity or the IT security that we talk about. How many people do you have in the defense side? You may have maximum 50 people. Now that 50 people have been picked up on basis of their current calibration, capabilities and skills. Now, are they in sync with the current times? Are we training those people to be in sync with the current risk? The answer is no. Whereas when you look at from the other side or from the attacker side, what you realize is there is no dearth of skill and there is no dearth of manpower. If I am trying to attack an organization, all I need to identify is one guy who can do this job for me. And I will give him the contract. I said, this is the target, this is what I want. How you do it is your headache. You figure it out. There is no organization structure, there is no capex investment, nothing in that side. Whereas when we talk about the organization, if you want to move a pencil from one point to another, you need 3 approvals. Everything is decided by the revenues and the budgets. So you are already sitting in a situation where you have already lost the battle because the skill set is something which you cannot create and maintain in the organization. Now this, along with the social media where people are posting about their lifestyle, whatever you want to do, whatever they are going to do, their travel plans, which country they are in, which place they are in. Now, if I really want to figure out, so please don't think that cyber is only limited to the one which is coming through the Ethernet cable. And if you really analyze the cyber in a much more detailed manner, you will realize that in most of the cases, it is a man that fails the system. It is not the technology that fails the system. Even in the recent ransomware, it is not the technology which has failed. It's human failure which has resulted in this. And a lot of time people tell us, we need to go to the law enforcement agency, you need to go to cybercrime police and all. We all know their capabilities, and there's a huge gap between what is required and what they have in current scenario. So this is about how an overall geopolitical situation is going to come and hit you. I'm not even going to talk about the internal issues because that's also in a sense linked to the geopolitical situation. The other issue is the organized crime that we see in today's world. So previously when we talk about the authorized crime, the crime used to be in a locality where the criminal is going to be in. And mostly it used to be, some theft, some chain snatching or some scrap manipulation, those kind of things. But today I can create a crime and the police will go on a wild goose chase to figure out which is the scene of crime. I know that the laws which is governing the cyberspace is so loose that nothing is going to happen to me. Because there is no cross-border treaty anywhere, and we are still yet to see something which is very effective within the country in terms of an IT law. So forget about what is there across the world. That's point number one. Second is, because I don't need to be there at the crime scene, I can execute the crime sitting anywhere in the world. All I need to do is to figure out who is going to be the part of the crime and how we entice those people to be the part of the crime. So previously it was like, narco trafficking, diamonds, weapons, blah, 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 blah. But today the crime scene has changed, the crime has changed to infiltration into the corporates to get data. And we are also seeing a nexus between the organized crime and the terror ground modules, because that's also, because everybody in this situation needs money. And the easiest money can be obtained by getting into the corporates, doing data theft and doing other kind of nonsense. But what is more critical is this is where it all leading to. It is piracy and the cyber crimes. Because like I said, I don't need to have an army of people to do this. I can pick and choose the people I want. I can pick the location from where I will originate this. And I know by the time even if anybody gets to know about it, I have covered my tracks and vanish. So the organized crime, what we used to do or what we used to control by using the classical police is now shifted from the touch and feel to a virtual world. The other issue that we need to look at is also the global competition. Now, if you look at the scenario, there are very less resource and a lot of people are actually fighting for that. So today when two companies are fighting for a particular deal at a national level, so let's say, Boeing and Airbus is fighting for a deal. It is not Boeing and Airbus that is fighting, it's two nations which is fighting. Now, why two nations are fighting? Because the stakes are so high that they want to use the complete state power to ensure that their company gets the deal. Now, along with this, when you look at the might of the countries which is going to be fighting for a particular deal or a particular cause, please understand that they will also deploy their complete power of competitive intelligence gathering to do this. Now, you may say that why, as a corporate, I should be worried about that. I will cover that in one of the slides which is coming up. Again, the exposure to the different geographies makes it very much easier for people to really figure out what a particular situation is and how do you take advantage of that. So obviously, a lot of people tell me that my internal network is very secure, so why should I worry? But most of the things that is internal to your network today is available in the social media. And people are actually now exploiting your Twitters and the Facebooks to figure out what you are trying to do. In some of the countries, the state intelligence agents are actually working for the companies which is placed in their own countries. There is no dearth of trained resource when the state might is behind you. And like I said previously, most of the time the implementation of law is so poor that I don't care because I know I will never be caught. Even if I am caught, nothing much is going to happen. So you know what is the situation with Snowden at this point of time. So that's where it's all leading to. I will skip the recessionary part just by touching about 2 points. One is, previously we all used to believe that if you start doing a job, you are going to be there for 15 years, 20 years. The loyalty of the person is the organization and all. But today the loyalty is worth 100 rupees. If somebody gives me 100 rupees more than what I'm getting right now, I don't mind switching. So that is the social fabric we live in today. Second is, there is a lot of recession and now we are hearing about a lot of people losing their jobs in IT sector and all that. Now the issue here is I am used to a particular lifestyle. Because of my peer pressure, even if I start getting a cut in my salary, I'm not going to let people realize that I'm actually coming down on my lifestyle. So my intent will be always to make up the money which I'm losing. And since I'm a part of the organization, I know the loopholes and I will exploit those loopholes to get what I want. Now, that is also the reason why a lot of cyber frauds are on the rise, a lot of other data breaches are on the rise. Now, some of these things, I need to just gloss over because of the lack of time. So I'm just going to show you some of the examples which is very familiar to you. But what I'm going to tell you after this is what is going to come, what is going to be the future. The cybercrime as we see now is probably not going to be the future of what we are going to see. So everybody is aware of this. Want to try? One of the major ransomware attack in the recent times, but the report says India survived without too much of impact. There are various kind of issues, financial fraud, cyber attack, some big companies getting affected by all this. But the fact is, this is something which we read in the paper on a day-to-day basis, and we are actually don't even bother as long as personally we are not getting hit by this. But what we need to understand is what is going to be the future. Now, is the future is something like a ransomware which is going to come and asking for Bitcoin or something like that, or it is going to leapfrog into a much different dimension. Now, most of the organizations, I'm going to show some of the slides which are actual situation in some of the organization, and if this data goes out into the public, most likely this organization will lose their license to do the business. And if they're going to lose the license to do their business, you can actually figure out what is going to be the impact or what are they willing to pay for in case they need to recover from this. So these are all regulatory violations which has been documented within the organization. I'm not going to go through it in detail. If somebody wants to take the PPT, you can take it from CI later on. There are various situations like, various frauds being conducted in financial markets and which has not been reported to the police, because as per the financial rules, if an internal violation of a control has been detected, you are supposed to report it to the police, but people don't do that. A lot of sensitive information like, how much is going to be the ESOPs going to be given out, what is going to be the marketing strategy or the mergers and acquisition strategy, which is going to have tremendous impact on the stock markets. A lot of nonsense which will hit the brand. So in this particular case, this is a food and beverages company. Somebody is complaining that there is a worm in the packet, and this is actually the real case. It's not been made out. Now just imagine if this goes to a competition or if it goes to a regulator, all they need to do is just publish it. Guaranteed nobody is going to buy these kind of things. Diapers, fungus in the diapers. No mother will ever touch those packets, and this has been acknowledged by them that yes, there was fungus in those packets. So this is somebody saying that, I need to pay up some people. This is in a particular situation where employees feel that, they are very proud of their company because they get their products at 50%, 40% value. But what the company is actually doing is to give them the shop return material. Again, these kind of things, these are some of the personal care items in which people advertise there is no ammonia. They have already taken approval for ammonia, and what has been added is much beyond what is been allowed. So there are several conditions like this. So basically, if we are saying that the cyber war is going to be the next replacement of the traditional war, nobody is going to ask you for bitcoins. That's just the tip of the iceberg. What people will try to do is to figure out how can I cut the social fabric of the organization. So what is it? So when you look at the cyber, what is it going to have? What is going to be the impact as we understand? So one is obviously it is going to jam or is going to disrupt my personal safety. And you can't blame the organization because you are the one who is actually doing it. When you start using mobile phones, when you start using various applications without even knowing what those apps are doing, you have already compromised your personal security. Today, most of the service providers know where you are, what you are doing, everything is available to them. Because most of the times when you deploy an app or install an app, it asks you for a lot of permissions which you don't even bother, and you just say, okay, accept and give it. And there is a fine print which says, we are doing what we are supposed to be doing and you cannot question it. That's one. Second is the belief that is going to be financial theft. Yes, that do happen because there is a set of people who are more focused on the financial part of the situation. Now, what is perhaps we need to understand is this from an impact or from a magnitude point of view, a breach of personal security or some money getting transferred from your account is of no consequence to anyone when you look at from the larger objective of these kind of attacks. Because even if you lose 1 lakh, nothing is going to happen to anybody else. It's just that you lost it. But what we need to understand is the risk is going to be at national security level, which is today we are all talking about Internet of Things. Everything is going to get connected, smart cities, digital India, all those kind of things. So it becomes much more easier because as a number of devices going to get an IP address and people are going to get connected to the net, it all becomes in a sense interconnected. You can keep on saying that I got enough firewalls, I got a lot of controls in place, but I'll tell you why it doesn't work. Second is it is going to hit the brand of a lot of companies. Today, even if the WannaCry has hit a lot of companies, they have not declared it because of the fear that it is going to be an impact on their brand. But tomorrow it is not going to be a ransomware which is going to come and hit, and they wait for you to report to the police for the brand to come in. They will just disrupt the entire thing. They will collapse the complete thing. This is not something which I am talking out of the hat. This has happened a couple of years back in some Middle East countries, and I don't want to take the name of those countries, where the complete operations was disrupted. A lot of competitive intelligence people today who is scouting for information by talking to people are now going to deploy people who are experts in cyber to get information. Few years back, if I could deface somebody's web page, I was supposed to be a king in hacking, and I will announce that I have defaced the web page. If you now see, you don't see any web page defacement at all, because today the intent, those times the intent was to create an aura around me saying that I can do it. Today the intent is to sit inside the system and extract as much as a person can. So people remain in the system for months and years, and we don't even come to know. The third issue is, obviously, this is what the end game is, that how can it disrupt the economy of the country? Now, when you look at from these areas, suddenly you realize, how is it possible that how can somebody do these kind of things to a nation through corporates or through some set of entities? So obviously I covered the international and cross-border terrorism already. I won't repeat that. Funding. Like I said, if an organization is trying to do something on the cyber security, they want to put in technology, they want to put in manpower, the point that is going to be asked in the boardroom is, where is the money? How can I allocate so much of money to do all these kind of things? Now, when you look at the other side of the spectrum, you suddenly realize in most of the cases this is state funded, or it is funded by people who know that the outcome is going to be much more lucrative than what they are going to invest. So it's a pure economic calculation which they work on. So funding is not a problem for them, whereas funding is a problem for you. The third issue is, like I said, there is no hierarchy in that side of the world. You figure out people, you figure out the network of people who can actually do it for you. They will come, they will do it, and in most of the cases, the fee is paid on success. Whereas in our case, even if we want to employ a person, we need to fill up so many forms, we need to take so much of approvals, and out of the 365 days, he is available to you for 180 days, and out of that, you may send him for 5 days training. He will go have tea and coffee and come back. So we have put tick marks in all those things which is required, but the intent of that entire exercise is actually futile. Whereas the people are trying to attack you, their intent is only to attack you. It is not to put tick marks in this. This is very interesting. Most of the companies that we have seen, the risk management function or the cyber control is actually piggybacking on something else. It is not an independent function in most of the cases. And we believe that this person can also take this additional responsibility of doing the risk management function. Now, what is very interesting is we are now trying to fight the new age crooks and criminals by using traditional controls. So I keep hearing people saying that I am very good because I have disabled my USB drive, there is no CD drive in my laptop. I said, who the hell is concerned about your USB drive and everything is on the mobile? Now, somebody at some point of time thought that having a USB drive enabled will help somebody to copy the data from the PC. Now that entire thing is now sitting on some drive, some cloud somewhere else in the world, and you are still saying that I have disabled my USB drive and there is no CD drives. So I think we need to get real and understand what is the crime and what is the criminal that we are trying to fight. So it is like you're trying to fight a AK-47 carrying terrorist with a lathi. That is exactly the way we are actually now fighting these cyber crimes. So again, coming back to the same point, we are trying to say that organized crime is a petty theft and we will be able to fight using the same kind of control. Where do you get people? If I can give enough personal motivation to a person and touch on his needs, guaranteed he will do anything for me. Because today the motivation is immense. People want to make money, people want to become famous, and with a pure there's some alarm which is on. With a guarantee that I will not be get caught, and even if I get caught within the country, you know that the time the legal framework is going to take to even come to some kind of a conclusion. We always used to look at that one single point of failure in the organization. Today, this point of failure is not single; it's all across. And law enforcement agencies, I don't want even to talk about that because it's wasting everyone's time. Now, when you look at these areas and when you look at the current way of managing risk, so what do people say? We got security guards, we got technology, everything is okay. I am certified in ISO some numbers, and we keep getting internal audits, customer audits, everything, and so we are okay. So essentially, the certifications and the policies and procedures, it is not worth anything beyond trash in today's situation. You can hang the certification on your wall and be happy about it, but it doesn't mean that a single workflow has changed in the organization. You can still get certified without doing anything in an ISO. So it doesn't really make any difference to drumbeat around saying that I got certification, I got policies, procedures, and all that. So most of the time, when we want to check whether my risk control is or the control structure is actually functioning, we start looking at audits. So like I said, we got internal audit, we got external audit, we got certification audit, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of times we say audit is the motherhood statement. Now let's understand one thing even from a senior management perspective or even from a middle management perspective. We know that when we started our jobs, one of the key points that was given to us by the seniors was to ensure that we clear the audit. So when you say we clear the audit, we actually manipulate the audit completely. We have been told that there is going to be an audit because that's the process of the audit. You circulate an audit schedule. So I know that Monday morning somebody is going to come and audit me. Saturday night I will make everything perfect. And this guy walks in, he sits in my department for 2 hours. In 2 hours, what is he going to find? He is going to ask me for proof that the controls are functioning. And what is the proof? It is records. We all know that the record doesn't really make any difference because it can be cooked, it can be manipulated. Third thing, what is he checking? He is checking a compliance. He is basically moving around with a manual, if you have one, or he is moving around with a standard and saying that you are supposed to do this, have you done it? If not, if yes, he puts a tick, he puts a cross. That's it. Even if there is a risk which is beyond that in the business, he is not able to identify it because that's beyond his scope, and in most of the times, it's beyond his capability. Right? Now, a lot of companies do tell me that we do process audits. Now, what is a process audit which people do? They do a top-down approach. Process optimization. How do I save money? Now, is there any organization which audits the process which is running around the technology from a security point of view? Nobody does it. Now, even if there is an audit which is done, most of the time, the gaps which is identified is been categorized as minor. And we will say, okay, in 6 months, I'll fix it. So most of the time, the senior management doesn't even know that there is a gap in the process. Whereas people who are sitting inside the organization, they know there is a gap. And they start manipulating the gaps in multiple processes and create a path, which nobody in the senior level even understand. And then you come across a catastrophe and then you start doing the postmortem. The last one, which is the most interesting thing, is what is the auditor reporting and what is it that you are interpreting? So if the auditor is saying that a particular control is implemented and complied with, does it mean that the control is functioning? The answer is no. The poor auditor is basically telling you that you have spent money. He doesn't have any wherewithal to figure out if that control is actually functioning or the intent is achieved. So for instance, if I had to take IT as the domain, and if I had to talk about the password policy, today everyone says I got 8-character alphanumeric password. The easiest thing to deploy in an organization takes less than 5 minutes. Go to domain controller, open the password policy screen, put the ticks, password policy implemented. The auditor goes to the same server, open the same screen, looks for the ticks. It is highly unlikely that the ticks won't match with the document. And he says the password policy is implemented, and we now believe that it's working. The point is, the intent of putting that password policy was to make sure that everybody puts in a password which is very difficult to break or difficult to guess. Is the auditor checking what is the password which is created by the people? The answer is no. People still create password which is password 123, company name 123, spouse name 123, etc., etc. So most of the time we sit in a situation based on the audit reports and we live in a perception that we are okay. Whereas in most of the cases, if you really figure out, the reality can be diametrically opposite. Even from an information or a cyber point, there are a lot of other areas which I need to skip because of the time, which is things like physical access. So today, if I am an external entity, if I want to breach your organization, the easiest thing I will do is to put a guy as an employee inside the organization. So once he is an employee, he gets a physical access, he gets a logical access, and who in the world checks what an employee is doing inside the network? Because we are all focused from outward to inward. We don't bother about what is in to in and what is that loop doing. Now, the way we are actually operating, or the way the workflows are designed, or the way the processes are designed, creates huge risk to the brand, huge risk to the competitive situation, which will collapse the organization going forward. Because of the one primary reason, that we are focused only on compliance. So most of the time when we actually walk into the organization, this is what the senior management says, that we have everything that the technology can provide and we are okay. Now, if technology is so super that nothing can go wrong in the technology, why do you need pilots in the aircraft? The plane can run on its own, right? What we try to ignore, or what we try to try not to bother about by investing in technology is the capability of, or the incapability of the man who is supposed to be running this technology or manning this technology. You cannot take a box and remove the people from that and say that the box is going to be a magic box. It cannot do anything. We all understand that there are still banks which is running without a core banking system. Nobody goes and opens a bank because there is some core banking system, and then you build everything around that. The technology comes at last. But when it comes to risk, we said technology comes first and there is nothing else which is required. The second issue is that we say we have outsourced the technology, the security. You are outsourced to your company, but you are not even able to figure out the capability of the people who are actually been deployed from their side. The man who has got access to your chairman's email may be a B grad who has just passed out. How do you know that you are guarding the guy who's got the key to your infrastructure? You don't even know who can go and influence people. Because we are so focused on our firewall, we are so focused on our other technology, we just ignore the guy who has actually got the key to everything, and you don't even know his background. The third thing is very interesting. We got all the controls in place. This is actually a picture which depicts the situation in a true essence. When we actually designed the control, we did a risk assessment and we figured out that the risk is on the head, and we put a helmet on his head. Today the risk is gone completely upside down, and we still believe that the helmet is going to protect it. God forbid this bike falls, head is not going to be the problem area, it is something else. But we still believe we got a helmet, we are okay. This is the way we actually look at situation. Now, why do we look at situations like this? We believe that we have standards and we follow a lot of standards, we follow audits, everything is fine. Now, because of this, we always believe on two things. One, the risk is not major because it never happened to me. You don't even know you are bleeding today. The third point is that we believe there is some kind of a control which is built into the value chain. That it is not my headache. If something comes to me, the guy sitting before me is already cleared it. It goes without saying. This is the way even the technology gets configured. I have seen extremely high-end firewall which has been configured as allow anybody to anyone to anyone, because we all believe that somebody else or some technology before that has taken care of the issues. We trust people. Now, accountability and the responsibility and the ownership and the process. These are the areas which is actually failing all of us. No matter what kind of technology you put in place, like I said, it is only going to throw you some kind of a data based on which you need to take some action. But we believe that as I start spending more and more money into the technology control, I don't need people, I don't need to be given any accountability at any level. You look at the technology framework, anything goes wrong, you look at the CISO, which is the Information Security Officer, or you look at the CI. If something goes wrong in the physical side, you look at the head of admin. What we need to understand is the risk is actually created by the senior management sitting inside the organization. If a chief information security officer is reporting on a month-by-month basis that I got a URL filter, people are still trying to go to unwanted sites. The report comes to the business guy, they don't take action for months. After 4 months, the guy stopped giving you the report. And after 6 months, he switches off the box. But we senior management still believe that from 4th month onwards, nobody is actually trying to violate the URL filtering policies. The reality is the content filter is already out of network. Now, the process which is supposed to be there is that if some action has to be taken, then you need to take that action. Without action, no matter what you do in your life, it's not going to work. The reason I already covered this because we believe that if I'm achieving compliance against some set of guidelines or some set of procedures, we are okay. Please understand, we are a nation where we don't want to even wear a helmet. Unless somebody is going to fine me 500 rupees, I will still ride a bike with the helmet hanging on my hand, not on my head. This is the culture of the country and this is the way we are actually operating. Because of this situation, we believe that something for which I need to be compliant, I will do it. Whether it is actually in spirit, I don't care. I just need to get a tick mark. Now, as long as your focus is compliance, your risk is going to be more and more increasing because the guy who's sitting on the other side, he'd care a damn about your compliance. He'd care a damn about your certification. He knows how to figure out which is the weakest link and he will attack that. Even the current one, which is the WannaCry, everybody knew there was an SMB1 flow long time back. How many people are patched it? What is the process that is running in the organization which says that if a risk is identified, if the control is available, the control needs to be implemented? What we do is delegation. We delegate it to somebody and somebody else delegates to somebody else because we believe that it is better that I move this monkey from my shoulder to somebody else's shoulder and then let me sleep peacefully. We are a generation which is living or which is taking decisions on the basis of dashboards. We don't even know whether the dashboard data or the data which is converting into a dashboard, is it correct or not? For instance, in most of the companies that we work with, the information security is given to the infra management team for managing it. So if I'm managing the IT, why should I even report the failures of me to the management? Everywhere else in the business, there is a maker, there is a checker, governance, everything is fine. But when it comes to security, the maker, checker, and the governance becomes one entity. And in most of the time, it is the outsourced guy. So what should we be doing? Why the audit is not going to spot any issues? So when we audit, what do we audit? We audit technology as an island, we audit processes as an island, and we audit in times people as an island. Each of these parameters will throw up some issues, but we never, from an audit perspective, we never ever try to see that if gap in one can get into the second, what kind of impact it's going to make. Your technology may be super duper in terms of security. All I need to do is to just call a guy, he will give me the password. Now, how do you say that you are secure? When you do a people audit, you send us questions saying that, will you share the password? He will say no. So he will say yes and no based on what is right. Technology situation will be the same and process will be the same. But what today people are trying to do is to figure out what are the gaps in all these areas and how can I use one against the other. That's all it takes, and we completely miss that point. We are vertically focused, people are horizontally focused. That is where the problem is. So what is the way you should, so I'm not saying that you can be 100% sure. If a person is determined to take you off, he will take you off. It's only a matter of time. But what you can do is what you normally do with your car, right? You generally lock your car whenever you leave the car anywhere. Why is it so? Is it that the guy cannot break the lock? It takes less than 5 minutes to break a car lock, but you are locking it because you are making it difficult for him that he should not be wasting that 5 minutes because he will look for some car which is unlocked. All that we are saying is follow the same process that you do in your day-to-day life when it comes to risk. what you need to figure out is what is the possibility of somebody breaking my system, whether it's a process, whether it's a person, whether it's a technology. Now, as long as you are circling around the compliance framework, you realize that you are just checking an overlay over your process. You are supposed to do it, have you done it? You are supposed to do it, have you done it? Now, the guy who is supposed to be doing the check or supposed to be maintaining the posture at a given point or at a particular level, he should be basically checking whether somebody, is there a way I can actually break this under controls. It takes time, it takes a different kind of a mindset to do that, because it is actually the organization have to come out of their comfort zone of compliance and audits and see, is there any way that a minor gap somewhere can impact something major to the organization. The second issue that we need to really look at is, most of the time when we talk about the risk, there is a probability factor. Today morning I was talking to a client, I do a classical risk assessment. I have the probability factor, I look at the impact, I create a 3x3 matrix. This is nonsense actually. Because if you are going to control your risk in life by 3x3 matrix, you are living out of your dreams at this point of time. Now, in most of the risk control framework that I have seen, when the control becomes difficult for a particular point or a particular issue, you reduce the probability to such a level it falls within the acceptable limit. That's what most of the organizations do. Whereas what you should be doing, that even if there's a 0.01% probability of something happening, you should see, is there a way I can actually control it? It may be costly, it may be causing a lot of inconvenience, but if the risk is going to be hitting my organization or hitting my survival, then you should be doing something to figure it out. So the manipulation of the probability factor resulting into some kind of a process under control is one of the issues that we are sitting like this. You take any ransomware, it has used an existing vulnerability and created the problem. Now, a lot of people do ask me that, can you prevent it? The answer is no, I cannot prevent it. It is going to keep on coming, and it will be much more severe than what we have seen so far. All that I can control is the spread of that. The classical way of looking at things, the classical way of controls is not going to do it, because now we are coming to a situation where you need artificial intelligence, you need machine learning capabilities to fight these kind of scenarios. And these technologies are going to cost you a bomb. Let me put it in writing at this point of time. There are two ways we can look at it. One is, let's wait for something to hit us as usual, then we wake up and start running. Or we can be prepared at this point of time and say, fine, I know there is going to be an issue, but at least I am reasonably prepared that it doesn't spread across my organization. The reason why we are actually doing things like this is because the audit in a classical way, or the way we are actually doing it, is always high, medium, low. It is high risk, medium risk, low risk. It's a qualitative analysis. If you can actually figure out the impact of the gap that you see in your infrastructure and quantify it as an impact, then you will understand that the risk is of a different nature and I need to be prepared in a much more better way than what I am doing right now. Why people fail to do this? Because we all believe that it is better for us to be in the status quo. It is very comforting. And we don't want to really rock the boat at this point of time and say, okay, fine, we are sitting with a bigger risk than what we anticipated. You can continue to do that. You can be sitting in a perception that you are safe. But very soon you will realize that one of your employees will kill the entire thing and walk away without even you realizing about it. And then you wake up and say that, my God, I should have done something. So as a senior people, or as even middle managers, or even as people who are just walking into the organization, there are a few things that you need to understand. Cyber is not an IT risk. The cyber security that we are talking about is a manifestation of risk created by each individual due to the fallacies that we do either on your IT systems or in our personal life, which people exploit and convert it into a risk. Please don't try to wash off your hands saying that it's a cyber risk, it is beyond my realms. You look at X number of reports that is floating around in the organization or in the newspapers and everywhere on the internet, you will understand that the thing which is called as cyber risk is actually an identity theft, which is done most of the times. It is a fallacy of the organization to check the last mile implementation, which creates this. You cannot train people by saying that, you should have a strong password, you should have this, you should do backup, this and that. You have to actually show the people that if your password is abc@1, I can actually break this password in 2 minutes. Why will they listen to this? Because invariably that will be the password for their personal accounts also. Please don't get me wrong if I say that nobody is concerned about the organization, which is a fact. Nobody is concerned about the security of the organization. But if you can show to the people that the personal stakes are in danger because of the way they are actually operating, then people will change. People share the password and they forget about it, but if person gives a 100 rupee note to a friend, he will still remember. He will still try to take that 100 rupee back because there is a value to that 100 rupee, but there is no value to that password. That is the actual on the ground scenario, and organizations are actually supporting this mindset by saying that as long as we are compliant to our policies and procedure, we are okay. The time has come to really start moving away from the classical way of thinking. I don't blame any of you. The point is, we are a set of people who are extremely law-abiding nature. We are scared to break the law. We do break the law. So for instance, if I'm standing at the red light in a traffic, if there is a cop standing on the other side, I will still keep my car standing. I will not cross the signal. The moment I know the cop is not there, somebody will brake and 50 people will go after it. Now the point is, if you are saying that you are okay with this kind of situation and if you are willing to only put in so much of budget, the situation is going to be like this. There will be much more severe attack that's going to come. It will be a calamity to that. It may be a direct calamity, or it can be even a what do you call as collateral damage to that. And then you try to pick up the pieces and start running. It probably, the situation is like that, it may not be possible for you to do that. So I think what you need to do is to move away from the classical way of looking at things and see how a criminal is going to look at it, your situation. If you want to be a criminal, what are you going to do? If you can get that thinking into your mind and start looking at the business and the personal life from that point, I think we'll be slightly better than what we are today. At least we'll be able to spot some kind of difference in behavior, some kind of pattern changes, and then we'll be able to save ourselves. I'm not saying that you will save yourself completely, but at least you will not be a sitting duck in the times to come. That's all about it, and all that you need to do is to create the human world. It is not the technology, it's about how you are going to behave in the new age, which is going to determine things.